The doorbell rang at midnight. Standing on my porch was my husband's face, but not my husband. "I'm Jack's twin brother," he said, smiling with familiar lips that had never kissed me. "He never told you about me, did he?" 8 years of marriage, and I'd never heard of a brother. My children appeared on the stairs behind me, and something in their eyes made my blood freeze. They recognized him. This stranger with my husband's face knew my children, and they knew him. As he stepped into our home, he whispered, "Jack's gone for 2 weeks, and I'm here to collect what's mine." I didn't understand then what he meant by mine, our house, our money, our life. But as days passed and secrets unraveled, I realized the most terrifying possibility, perhaps he meant me. Perhaps he meant my children. And perhaps, most disturbing of all, he had every right to claim us, because I no longer knew which twin I had actually married. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. The house was quiet, except for the gentle hum of the dishwasher. I'd finally gotten both kids to bed after Jack left for his business trip to Tokyo. 2 weeks without him seemed like an eternity, but we'd been through longer separations before. I checked the locks one last time, dimmed the lights in the living room, and headed upstairs. I was just settling into bed with my book when the doorbell rang. The sound pierced through the silent house, making me jump. I glanced at the clock. Midnight exactly. Nobody decent comes calling at midnight. My heart raced as I grabbed my phone and crept down the stairs. Through the peephole, I could make out a man's silhouette under the porch light. My finger hovered over the emergency call button as I called, "Out." "Who is it?" "Emma, I need to speak with you." The voice was eerily familiar, too familiar. I cracked the door open, chain still in place, and nearly collapsed. Standing on my porch was Jack, but not Jack. The same height, same deep-set blue eyes, same cleft chin, but his hair was longer, and there was a scar cutting through his right eyebrow that Jack never had. More than anything, though, this man's eyes held none of the warmth my husband's did. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, though I already feared the answer. "I'm Daniel," he said with a slight smile. "Jack's twin brother. He never told you about me, did he?" The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. In 8 years of marriage, Jack had never once mentioned having a brother, let alone an identical twin. "That's impossible," I said, my voice barely audible. "Jack doesn't have a brother." Daniel's smile turned cold. "I'm not surprised he kept me a secret. That's what Jack does. He erases what doesn't fit his perfect life." He shifted his weight, revealing a small duffel bag at his feet. "He's gone. For 2 weeks, right? Tokyo? I'm here to collect what's mine." A small noise from the stairs made me turn. My heart sank as I saw Lily and Noah standing there in their pajamas, watching with wide eyes. "Mommy, who's that?" Lily asked, her 8-year-old face scrunched in confusion. "He looks like Daddy." Daniel's gaze shifted to the children, his expression softening slightly. "Hello there," he said gently. Noah, only 6 and always more intuitive than his age would suggest, stared at Daniel with an odd recognition. "He looks like Daddy," he whispered, but something in his voice chilled me. "Kids, go back to bed," I said firmly. "Now." Neither child moved, both transfixed by the man at the door. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside," Daniel suggested, "unless you want your neighbors witnessing a family reunion at midnight." I glanced at the houses across the street, seeing lights flicking on. Mrs. Patterson, the neighborhood busybody, was already peeking through her curtains. 5 minutes, I conceded, unhooking the chain. "Then you're leaving." As soon as Daniel stepped inside, I regretted my decision. He moved with confidence, not like a visitor, but like someone returning to familiar territory. The children remained on the stairs, watching intently. "Lily, Noah, upstairs now," I said with as much authority as I could muster. I'll be up to tuck you in again soon. Reluctantly, they turned and climbed back upstairs, throwing glances over their shoulders at Daniel. Daniel walked straight to the living room as if he knew the layout of our home. He stopped at the mantelpiece, examining our family photos. Beautiful family, he commented, picking up our wedding photo. Margaret and Thomas look happy here. Did they ever tell you about me? My blood ran cold. Jack's parents' names were indeed Margaret and Thomas. How would a stranger know that? Jack's parents never mentioned any brother, I said cautiously. Why would they hide something like that? Daniel replaced the photo carefully. Because that's what the Harrisons do. They bury uncomfortable truths, just like they buried me. He turned to face me fully. You really had no idea, did you? That your perfect husband has been living a lie? Before I could respond, I heard footsteps on the stairs again. Lily appeared, followed closely by Noah. I told you both to stay upstairs, I said, frustration edging into my voice. But Lily wasn't looking at me. She approached Daniel without a trace of fear. Did you bring the book you promised? She asked. I froze. Lily, what are you talking about? You've never met this man before. Noah joined his sister. Is it the one with the dragons? He asked eagerly. Daniel knelt to their level, his expression unreadable. Not this time, buddy, but I'll bring it next time, okay? The casual familiarity between them sent panic coursing through me. There won't be a next time, I said sharply. Kids, upstairs now, I won't ask again. This time, they obeyed, though reluctantly. When they were out of earshot, I turned to Daniel. What the hell is going on? How do my children know you? Children are more perceptive than adults give them credit for, he said cryptically. But that's a conversation for tomorrow. It's late and we all need rest. You're not staying here, I stated flatly. Where would you have me go, Emma? It's midnight, and I've come a long way. His eyes hardened slightly. Besides, don't you want to know what Jack's been hiding from you all these years? What he stole from me? I weighed my options. Throwing him out seemed dangerous. He knew, too. Much about my family already. Letting him stay seemed equally risky. But at least I could keep an eye on him while I figured out what was happening. One night, I relented. On the couch. And tomorrow, you tell me everything, or I'm calling the police. Daniel nodded, seeming satisfied. By the time Jack gets back, you'll know everything he's been hiding from you. I made up the couch with sheets and a blanket, my hands trembling the entire time. As soon as Daniel was settled, I locked myself in Jack's office and frantically called his cell phone. No answer. I sent urgent texts. Call me immediately. Emergency. Nothing. While waiting for Jack to respond, I searched through his desk. There was a locked drawer I'd never paid attention to before. Using a letter opener, I managed to force it open. Inside was a small box containing old photographs. Most were of Jack as a child, places and people I'd never seen in our family albums. But one photo made my heart stop. Two identical boys about 10 years old sitting on a tree branch. One had the same scar Daniel had. On the back, written in childish handwriting. The last summer. Remember what we promised. I barely slept that night, keeping my bedroom door locked with a chair propped under the handle. When dawn finally broke, I crept downstairs, hoping against hope that the previous night had been a nightmare. Instead, I found Daniel sitting at my kitchen table, drinking coffee from Jack's favorite mug. Worse, Lily and Noah were sitting with him, still in their pajamas, listening intently as he told them stories. And then your daddy and I built a treehouse so high that Grandma Margaret said we were trying to reach the moon, Daniel was saying. His hands animated. Lily was drawing on her sketch pad. Two identical men, one with a scar, one without. The picture made my skin crawl. Good morning, Emma, Daniel said, looking up at me. The kids have been telling me about their school. Noah's quite the little artist, just like Jack was at his age. I poured myself coffee with shaking hands. Kids, go get dressed for school. When they'd gone upstairs, I faced Daniel. What game are you playing? How do my children know you? They don't know me, Emma. They know Jack. He took a sip of coffee. But sometimes, maybe they've known me too. Over breakfast, I interrogated Daniel while trying to appear calm for the children's sake. He claimed he and Jack had been inseparable until age 19, when everything changed. We were supposed to share everything, Daniel explained, cutting his pancakes precisely the way Jack did. The inheritance, the family business, everything. But Jack got greedy. What inheritance? I asked. Jack had never mentioned family money. We'd built our life from scratch, or so I thought. Our parents died in a car accident when we were 20, Daniel said, his voice flat. The insurance payout was substantial, the inheritance even more. So, Jack took everything while I was in the hospital recovering from the same accident. The story seemed too convenient, too practiced. If that's true, why wait 8 years to come forward? Why now? Daniel's eyes flicked to the children, then back to me. The statute of limitations runs out soon, and I've been watching, waiting, for the right time. After getting the kids ready, I drove them to school, deliberately leaving Daniel at the house. As I pulled away, I caught a glimpse of him standing at the window, watching us leave. There was something predatory in his stance. Instead of returning home immediately, I stopped at the school to speak with Principal Sanders. Her office was warm and inviting, with children's artwork covering the walls. "Mrs. Harrison, what can I help you with today?" she asked pleasantly. "I need to know if anyone besides me or my husband has ever picked up my children," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The principal frowned slightly. "Let me check their files." She pulled up records on her computer. "Yes, there was one. Occasion about 3 months ago when Noah forgot his lunchbox. Your brother-in-law brought it in. Uncle Daniel, I believe." My blood ran cold. "Did he show ID?" "Of course. We're very strict about that. He had proper authorization on the emergency contact form, but I had never added any Uncle Daniel to our emergency contacts." After leaving the school, I drove to Sunny Meadows, the retirement community where Jack's parents lived. Margaret Harrison greeted me with surprise. "Emma, dear, what brings you here midweek? Is everything all right with Jack and the children?" I accepted her offer of tea, waiting until we were settled in her sunroom before bringing up Daniel. "Margaret, I need to ask you something important," I began carefully. "Does Jack have a brother?" The teacup in Margaret's hand trembled so violently that tea spilled onto her lap. "Why would you ask such a thing?" "Because someone claiming to be Jack's identical twin brother showed up at our house last night," I said bluntly. "He knew your names. He had old family photos." Margaret's face had gone pale. "Jack is an only child," she said stiffly. "He's never had a brother." "Then how do you explain this?" I pulled out the photograph of the 2 boys. Margaret stared at it, then abruptly stood up. "I don't know where you got that, but it's been manipulated. Perhaps you should leave, Emma. I'm feeling rather tired." Her reaction told me everything. She was lying. When I returned home, I was shocked to find the house spotless. Daniel had cleaned everything. Dishes washed, living room vacuumed, even the kids' toys organized. He was in the kitchen preparing dinner, chicken parmesan sizzling in the oven, Lily and Noah's favorite meal. "Welcome back," he said casually. "I hope you don't mind. I thought I'd make dinner for when the kids get home from school." "How did you know this is their favorite meal?" I demanded. Daniel smiled enigmatically. "Lucky guess. Or maybe Jack and I share the same taste in food." "I went to see Margaret today," I said, watching his reaction carefully. His hands stilled momentarily. "And what did dear old Mom have to say about me?" "She denied you exist. Said Jack is an only child." Daniel laughed bitterly. Of course she did. She's been erasing me for 20 years. He pulled plates from the cabinet, the exact cabinet where we kept them. They all pretend I never existed. It's easier that way. That night, Noah woke up screaming. I rushed to his room to find him tangled in his sheets, eyes wide with terror. They were fighting, he sobbed as I held him. Two daddies fighting in the woods. They had a knife. I smoothed his hair. It was just a bad dream, sweetheart. Noah looked up at me, his little face serious. The man with the cut on his face told me not to tell you about the special trips. With Daddy. My heart nearly stopped. What special trips, Noah? But he shook his head and buried his face against my shoulder. I'm not supposed to tell. It's a secret. The next morning, Daniel showed me a key. This opens a safe deposit box at First National Bank. Inside is everything you need to know about who you really married. His eyes held a challenge. Are you brave enough to look? I agreed to go to the bank with him, but first, I needed to talk to Jack. I called him at midnight when I knew he'd be awake in Tokyo. He answered on the first ring. Emma, thank God. Are you and the kids okay? But his voice sounded different, harder, colder than my husband's usual tone. Your brother is here, I said without preamble. The one you never told me about. There was a long silence before Jack spoke again. Daniel is dangerous, Emma. He's mentally unstable. He's been stalking our family for years. How would you know that unless you knew he existed? I countered. You lied to me, Jack. I was trying to protect you and the kids. He insisted. Take Lily and Noah to your sister's house. I'll get on the next flight home. Noah mentioned special trips with you, I said. Trips I don't know about. Jack hung up without another word. Later that night, while checking on the children, I noticed something odd about Noah's bookshelf. A small black object was wedged between two books, its lens pointing directly at his bed. A camera. Horrified, I examined it closely. It was sophisticated, wireless, with a memory card. Someone had been watching my son sleep. The next morning, Daniel and I visited First National Bank. To my surprise, the manager greeted Daniel warmly. Mr. Harrison, good to see you again, she said, leading us to the vault. Harrison? I questioned, once we were alone. Your last name is Harrison? Jackson and Daniel Harrison, he confirmed. Jack started using Wilson when he created his new identity. But Wilson wasn't Jack's assumed name. It was his actual family name, inherited from his father. At least, that's what I'd always believed. The safe deposit box contained several documents: birth certificates for identical twins Daniel and Jackson Harrison, newspaper clippings about a car accident that killed Andrew and Elizabeth Harrison, and a life insurance policy worth $5 million. They ruled the crash suspicious, Daniel explained, pointing to a highlighted section of the police report. Brake lines tampered with, but they could never prove who did it. His implication was clear, but I refused to believe Jack could be involved in his parents' death. Still suspicious of Daniel's claims, I secretly collected hair samples from him and the children. I also took strands from Jack's hairbrush before dropping the samples at a private DNA testing facility that promised rush results. It's just to confirm paternity for a family matter, I lied to the technician. When I picked up Lily from school that afternoon, her teacher, Ms. Walker, asked to speak with me privately. Mrs. Wilson, I wanted to show you something, she said, pulling out a folder of Lily's artwork. Lily has been drawing these pictures for months now. The drawings showed two identical men, one with a scar, one without. In some pictures they were smiling together. In others they appeared to be fighting. I assumed it was just an imaginary friend situation, Ms. Walker explained. Many children create stories about their parents having doubles, but given how detailed and persistent these drawings are, I wanted to make sure everything is okay at home. Everything's fine, I lied. Lily has a very active imagination. Later that day, Daniel took me to a storage unit in a facility across town. He unlocked it to reveal dozens of boxes labeled with years and categories. Childhood, high school, college. Jack kept everything, he explained. Our entire shared history, hidden away where you'd never find it. The boxes contained thousands of photos showing the twins together throughout their childhood and teenage years. Yearbooks with both their pictures, family vacation snapshots, and more disturbing items, a journal documenting their falling out, and a jacket with what looked like dried bloodstains. He attacked me, Daniel said, holding up the jacket. When I confronted him about taking the inheritance, left me for dead in the woods behind our parents' house. I found a name in one of the yearbooks, Melissa Gardner, listed as Jack's girlfriend in their senior year. Through social media, I tracked her down to a suburb 30 miles away. Melissa agreed to meet me at a coffee shop. She arrived looking nervous, constantly glancing over her shoulder. I haven't heard that name in years, she said when I mentioned Jack. I try not to think about that time in my life. You dated him in high school? I prompted. I dated Daniel first, she corrected. Then Jack stole me away, or at least that's what I thought at the time. She twisted her napkin anxiously. Looking back, I'm not sure who I was with half the time. They used to switch. Switch? Trade places. Pretend to be each other. At first, it was just a game. Then it became something darker. She leaned forward. They liked confusing people, especially girls. They'd take turns being with me, see if I could tell the difference. I felt sick. How did you find out? Little inconsistencies. One day, Jack would remember our conversation from yesterday. The next day, he'd have no recollection. One day, he'd have a small scar on his eyebrow from a childhood accident. The next, it would be gone. Her hands trembled as she lifted her coffee. I confronted them, and they just laughed, said I was the only one who'd ever figured it out. They thought it was hilarious. When I returned home, I found Lily and Noah whispering together in Noah's closet. They jumped when I opened the door. What are you two doing? I asked. Nothing, Lily said too quickly. I gently moved her aside and discovered a shoebox hidden under some clothes. Inside were small gifts, candy, toy cars, colored pencils, and handwritten notes signed from Uncle D. The earliest was dated 6 months ago. How long has Uncle Daniel been giving you these? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Lily and Noah exchanged glances. We're not supposed to tell, Lily finally said. It's a special secret. That evening, I received a call from an unknown number. When I answered, a digitally distorted voice spoke. Send him away before it's too late. Who is this? I demanded. Someone who knows what they're planning, the voice replied. Check your basement, the false wall behind the water heater. Call disconnected. Shaking, I went to the basement while Daniel was showering. Behind the water heater, just as the caller had said, was a section of wall that looked slightly different from the rest. Pushing against it, I discovered it was a hidden door. Inside was a small room containing surveillance equipment, monitors showing camera feeds from throughout my house, including the children's bedrooms and bathroom. The system's login history showed regular access for the past year. Someone had been watching us, in our most private moments, watching my children. I was studying the equipment when Mrs. Peterson from next door called. Emma, dear, I saw your lights on and wanted to check if everything's okay with Jack being home early. Jack's not home, I said, confused. He's in Tokyo. Oh, well, I could have sworn I saw him watching your house from across the street several times this week. I assumed he came home to surprise you. After hanging up, I confronted Daniel with my discovery of the surveillance room. He seemed genuinely shocked. Jack installed those, he insisted. He's been monitoring me, not you. He knew I was getting close to exposing him. Then why are there cameras in my children's rooms? I demanded. Before he could answer, Noah appeared in the hallway, sleepwalking. His eyes were open, but unseeing. "Daddy?" he mumbled, walking straight to Daniel. Daniel instinctively reached for him. "Hey, buddy," he said softly, before catching himself. His expression changed as he realized what he'd done. I snatched Noah away. "What have you done to my son?" I hissed. But as I looked at Daniel's face, so identical to my husband's, a terrifying question formed in my mind. Which of them was really my children's father? I barely slept that night, my mind racing with terrible possibilities. The foundation of my life was crumbling beneath me. If I couldn't trust Jack, if I didn't even know which man was truly my husband, how could I protect my children? Morning brought a courier to our door with an overnight package from Tokyo. My hands trembled as I signed for it. Inside was a handwritten letter on hotel stationery. "Emma, by now Daniel has surely poisoned your mind against me. I never told you about him because I wanted to protect you and the children from his obsession. Daniel and I are identical twins, but we couldn't be more different inside. After our parents died, Daniel suffered a psychotic break. He became convinced that I had stolen his identity, his inheritance, everything. The truth is that he murdered our parents for the insurance money, but when the investigation began to focus on him, he tried to frame me. I've spent years hiding from him, changing names, moving cities. When I met you, I thought we were finally safe. I was wrong. He's been stalking our family for years, becoming more obsessed with taking my place. Don't believe anything he shows you. The documents are forgeries. The photos are manipulated. He is dangerous, Emma. Keep the children away from him. I'm coming home as soon as possible. Always yours, Jack." The handwriting matched Jack's perfectly, the same distinctive way he crossed his T's and looped his Y's. But then, identical twins would have been taught penmanship the same way. I folded the letter and tucked it into my pocket as Daniel came into the kitchen. "Package from Tokyo?" he asked casually, pouring coffee. "Just work documents," I lied. "I'm going out for a few hours, alone." I drove to the local police station, a modern brick building downtown. The desk sergeant directed me to Detective Rivera, a serious woman with short gray hair and piercing eyes. "What can I help you with, Mrs. Wilson?" she asked, ushering me into her small office. "I need information about someone named Daniel Harrison," I said. "He claims to be my husband's identical twin brother." Detective Rivera's expression changed subtly. She pulled a file from her cabinet. "We've been looking for Daniel Harrison for some time," she said, sliding a photo across her desk. The image showed Daniel, identical to the man staying in my house, down to the scar above his eyebrow. He's wanted for questioning regarding his parents' deaths and several cases of identity theft across 3 states, Rivera explained. He has a history of psychiatric issues and was institutionalized briefly after his parents' deaths. How do you know him? He showed up at my house claiming my husband stole his identity and inheritance, I said, my mouth dry. He's been staying with us. Detective Rivera straightened in her chair. Mrs. Wilson, I strongly advise you to stay elsewhere until we can bring him in for questioning. If what you're saying is true, your family could be in danger. My phone rang as I left the station. It was Jack. Emma, I've booked a flight home. I'll arrive tomorrow afternoon instead of next week. His voice sounded strained, different. When I told him I wouldn't take the children to a hotel, his response chilled me. God damn it, Emma, he snapped, a harshness I'd never heard from him before. For once in your life, do what I tell you to do. He hung up before I could respond. I sat in my car, shaking. That wasn't how Jack spoke to me, ever. It was like talking to a stranger wearing my husband's voice. That afternoon, Daniel took me to a place I'd never seen before, a modest 2-story house on the outskirts of town, now abandoned and overgrown. Our childhood home, he explained. As we walked through knee-high grass to the backyard, behind the house stood 2 identical tree houses, weathered but still intact, built in adjacent oak trees. Jack and I built these when we were 12, Daniel said, a hint of genuine emotion in his voice. This one was mine. That one was his. I climbed the rickety ladder to the one he indicated as Jack's. Inside, carved into the wooden wall, D gets everything when we turn 30. J gets nothing. What does this mean? I asked when I came back down. A childhood pact, Daniel explained. On our 30th birthday, we'd switch places. I'd get his life, he'd get mine. A game we played. But Jack decided to switch early, and not switch back. I took photos of the carvings with my phone, troubled by this glimpse into their childhood. As we drove back, I asked Daniel about his hospitalization. Jack told the doctors I was delusional, he said bitterly. That I believed I was him. By the time I convinced them something was wrong, Jack had emptied our accounts and disappeared. That was 6 years ago. 6 years ago, right around when I met Jack. That evening, concerned about the children's increasingly strange behavior, I took them to Dr. Karen Matthews, a child psychologist friend had recommended. I'd like to try some play therapy with Lily and Noah, Dr. Matthews suggested after I'd explained the situation without mentioning the twins. Children often express through play what they can't put into words. I watched through a one-way mirror as Dr. Matthews set out dolls and toys for the children. Almost immediately, they began arranging male dolls in pairs. "This is good, Daddy," Lily said, holding up one doll. "And this is scary, Daddy," Noah added, holding up an identical doll. Dr. Matthews kept her expression neutral. "Do they look the same?" Lily nodded. "They're the same person, but different. How do you tell them apart?" The doctor asked. Noah pointed to his eyebrow. "Scary Daddy has a cut here sometimes, but sometimes good Daddy has it too. They trade." My blood ran cold as I watched my children act out scenarios with the two daddies. Scenes of the twins. Switching places, confusing Mommy, making it a game. Afterward, Dr. Matthews was cautious in her assessment. The children seem to be describing a situation where they believe their father has two distinct personalities or identities, she explained. This could be their way of processing confusing adult behavior. Or what? I prompted when she hesitated. Or they could be describing something they've actually witnessed, she finished. When we returned home, the DNA test results were waiting in my email. With trembling fingers, I opened the file. The results confirmed that Daniel shared identical DNA with Jack. They were definitely identical twins. But the more disturbing finding was that both men's DNA was present on the children's personal items, suggesting both had been in physical contact with Lily and Noah recently. Identical twins have identical DNA, so paternity couldn't be definitively established. But the evidence of both men's recent contact with my children confirmed my worst fears. They had been switching places, perhaps for years. That night, unable to sleep, I pulled out our wedding video. I'd watched it dozens of times before, but never with suspicion. Now I scrutinized Jack's behavior throughout the ceremony and reception. There were moments that suddenly seemed off, Jack looking momentarily confused when his mother mentioned childhood memories, hesitating slightly before responding to an inside joke from a college friend, seeming uncertain during the traditional family dances. Had it been Jack at our wedding? Or Daniel? Or had they switched throughout the day? I was still watching when Lily appeared beside my bed, her small face serious in the blue glow of the screen. "Sometimes Daddy is different," she whispered. "He forgets things we did together, then remembers again. Sometimes his eyebrow has the cut, sometimes it doesn't." "How long has this been happening, sweetie?" I asked, my heart breaking. "Always," she said simply, before climbing into bed beside me. The next morning, while Daniel was showering, I searched the house thoroughly. In Jack's golf bag, tucked into a side pocket, I found a small leather journal. The entries switched between two distinct handwritings, both similar but one slightly more angular than the other. April 15th. Switch successful. E suspects nothing. children adaptable as always. D will return after Tokyo trip. Arrangement working well. May 30. E becoming suspicious about schedule inconsistencies. Need to coordinate stories better. The trade next month needs to be cleaner. June 24th. D pushing boundaries again. Spent too much time with N. We agreed. Minimal individual contact with children to avoid confusion. The final entry, dated just 3 weeks ago, chilled me to the bone. E is becoming suspicious. We need to end this arrangement, or end her. 2. Much at stake now with the inheritance deadline approaching. Decision required before Tokyo trip. I photographed every page before returning the journal to its hiding place, my mind reeling. Both twins had been sharing Jack's identity, trading. Places in my life, in my bed. Both had been fathers to my children, and now they were contemplating ending me. I drove to the airport the next day, determined to confront Jack the moment he arrived. According to his text, his flight from Tokyo was landing at 2:15 p.m. I stood near the arrivals gate, scanning every face. At 2:40, passengers began streaming through. And then I saw him, Jack, my husband, walking through the gate with his carry-on bag. But as I stepped forward, I froze. Another man was exiting the same flight, 20 people behind Jack. A man with identical features, but with what appeared to be a fresh scar above his right eyebrow. 2 Jacks, both real, both here. I stood paralyzed as both men disappeared into the crowd before I could reach either one. My phone buzzed with a text from Jack's number. Home soon. Traffic from airport. Love you? Which one had sent it? Which one was coming home? Instead of returning home immediately, I drove to the address of Thomas Walker, the twins' childhood friend I'd found mentioned in their high school yearbook. Thomas lived in a small apartment across town. He seemed unsurprised when I introduced myself as Jack's wife. I always wondered which one of them settled down, he said, inviting me in. Was it Jack or Daniel who married you? That's what I'm trying to figure out, I admitted. Thomas nodded knowingly. They've been playing the switch since we were kids, he explained. Started as a way to confuse teachers and parents. Jack would take Daniel's math test. Daniel would serve Jack's detention. But they continued as adults? I asked. It evolved, Thomas said carefully. Became more elaborate, higher stakes. In college, they would trade places for entire semesters. One would go to classes while the other worked or traveled. They shared the experience, the knowledge. They functioned as a single person split between 2 bodies. That's insane, I whispered. To them, it was the ultimate expression of their twinship, Thomas replied. They didn't see boundaries the way the rest of us do. Everything was shared. Clothes, friends, girlfriends, identity. He paused. Did you check the insurance policies? What insurance policies? Jack and Daniel always had a thing about insurance, Thomas explained. Their parents' policies paid out millions after the accident. They were obsessed with the idea. When I returned home, I found my home office unlocked, something I never did. Inside, my filing cabinet had been searched, papers slightly rearranged. I dug through the financial section and found something I'd never seen before. A life insurance policy on me for $5 million, with Jack listed as sole beneficiary. The signature date caught my eye. It was from a day when Jack was supposedly on a business trip to Chicago. The same day Daniel claimed to have visited the children with their special books. I was still processing this discovery when I heard a noise from the basement. I crept down the stairs to find Daniel destroying the surveillance equipment, smashing monitors and ripping out hard drives. "What are you doing?" I demanded. He whirled around, wild-eyed. "Protecting you from Jack," he insisted. "He's been watching, us planning something. I'm erasing the evidence before he can use it. Or destroying evidence of your own surveillance," I countered. Our argument was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening upstairs. Daniel froze, then rushed past, me up the stairs. I followed close behind. Jack stood in the living room, setting down his suitcase. He looked exhausted from travel, but still broke into a warm smile when he saw me. "Emma," he said, opening his arms. Before I could respond, Daniel appeared from the kitchen. The two men stood facing each other. Perfect mirror images except for Daniel's scar, which now appeared to be smearing slightly at the edge, revealing makeup beneath. "Hello, brother," Jack said coldly. "Welcome home," Daniel replied with equal frost. I looked between them, suddenly uncertain which was which. If the scar was fake, either could be wearing it. The one who'd arrived claiming to be Daniel could actually be Jack, and vice versa. "One of you has been living in my house, sleeping in my bed, parenting my children," I said, my voice shaking. "And I don't even know which one." They exchanged glances, a silent communication I couldn't interpret. "Emma, it's not what you think," said the one who'd arrived as Jack. "It started as a simple arrangement," added the one with the scar. "Simple?" I nearly shouted. "You've been trading places in my life. My children don't even know which of you is their father." "We both are," they said in unison, then looked at each other in annoyance. The scarred one stepped forward. "We never meant to hurt you, Emma. The arrangement benefited everyone. Jack got to travel and build his business. I got the family life I always wanted. The children got double the attention and love. And what did I get?" I asked bitterly. "Lies, manipulation, a marriage to two men without my knowledge or consent?" "You got both of us," the unscarred one said. "The best of both of us." I tried to move toward the stairs to check on the children, but both men blocked my path. "The children are fine, Emma," said the scarred twin. "They've always known about the game. They're the only ones who could sometimes tell us apart. You involved my children in this sick charade?" I felt physically ill. "You threatened them to keep your secret?" "Not threatened," the unscarred twin corrected. "We made it a game. Special treats and presents for keeping the secret. They loved it." I finally understood the full extent of their manipulation. Not just of me, but of Lily and Noah, bribing and conditioning them to participate in their deception. "Why?" I demanded. "Why go to all this trouble?" The twins exchanged another look, and suddenly I knew I was seeing their true relationship. Not adversaries, but conspirators. "The Harrison family trust?" the scarred one explained reluctantly. "Our grandfather's fortune. The terms of inheritance required one of us to establish a stable family life for 5 years before the money would be released. So you created Jack's perfect family life, with me as an unwitting participant," I concluded, rage building inside me. "How convenient." As we argued, I spotted Lily peering down from the top of the stairs. The look of confusion on her face broke my heart. "Daddy?" she called uncertainly, not knowing which man to address. "Go back to your room, sweetheart," both men said in unison, then glared at each other. "Stop it," I shouted. "Stop confusing her." I pushed past them and ran to Lily, gathering her in my arms. "Where's Noah?" I asked urgently. "In his room," she whispered. "Are the daddies fighting again?" Again. The word pierced my heart. I carried Lily to Noah's room and locked the door behind us, pulling out my phone to call Detective Rivera. Before I could dial, I noticed Noah was clutching his tablet. "Mom, look," he said, turning the screen toward me. It showed the twins in our living room, their conversation clearly audible through the device. "You were supposed to wait another week," the unscarred one was saying angrily. "The plan changed when she found the surveillance equipment," replied the scarred twin. "We need to accelerate the timeline." "What about Emma?" "Car accident. Tragic." "You'll be the grieving widower with 2 kids to raise. The trust releases the money, we split it, and go our separate ways. And if she doesn't cooperate? Then we take the children and do it anyway. The insurance pays either way." Noah looked up at me with frightened eyes. "Mom, are they going to hurt us?" I held him close. "No, baby. I won't let them." I dialed 911, but there was no signal. The twins must have installed a jammer. I tried to think of an escape route, but my bedroom was at the front of the house. The only other exit would be… Kids, we're going out the window, I said, moving to Noah's bedroom window that overlooked the backyard. I pushed it open and looked down. A 10-foot drop to the garden below. Before I could figure out how to get the children safely down, I heard a crash as someone began breaking down the bedroom door. The flimsy lock wouldn't hold for long. Hide, I ordered, pushing the children into the closet. Don't come out until I call for you. The door splintered open and one of the twins burst in, the one without the scar, his face contorted with anger. Don't make this difficult, Emma, he said, advancing toward me. I backed toward the window. Stay away from us, Jack, or Daniel. Whoever you are. Does it even matter anymore? He asked coldly. The bedroom door opened wider, and the scarred twin entered. For a moment, I thought I was trapped between them. Then the scarred one spoke. Get away from her, Jack. He was holding a kitchen knife. The unscarred twin, Jack, turned in surprise. What are you doing? This isn't the plan. Plans change, Daniel replied. I'm tired of sharing, tired of being the shadow. I want this life for myself. As they faced off, I realized this was my only chance. I lunged for the closet, grabbed my children, and made for the door. Jack tried to block us, but Daniel slashed at him with the knife, cutting his arm. We raced down the stairs as the twins' argument escalated to violence behind us. I grabbed my car keys from the entry table and hurried the children outside to the car. As I started the engine, I saw both twins emerge from the house, still fighting. In a horrifying moment, Daniel plunged the knife into Jack's stomach. My children screamed as their father, one of their fathers, collapsed onto the front lawn. I sped away, calling 911 as soon as we were clear of the signal jammer's range. Police found me and the children at a roadside motel 20 miles outside of town. Detective Rivera herself came to take our statement, bringing a female officer who specialized in working with traumatized children. We've arrested Daniel Harrison, Rivera informed me. He's being charged with assault and attempted murder. Jack is in surgery, but the doctors expect him to recover. Which one is Daniel? I asked. The one with the scar or without? The one without the scar, Rivera replied. The scar on the other twin appears to have been makeup, designed to confuse you. We found the makeup kit in the bathroom, so the Daniel who had shown up at my door had actually been Jack, and the Jack who'd returned from Tokyo was actually Daniel. They had been switching identities even as they pretended to be adversaries. What happens now? I asked, holding my children close. We've found evidence in their possession that supports charges of conspiracy, identity fraud, stalking, and attempted murder, Rivera explained. The surveillance equipment in your home provides further evidence. They'll both be facing significant prison time. While the police processed the twins, Lily approached me with her tablet. Mom, I have something to show you. She pulled up a video recording, one she'd secretly made weeks ago when both twins were in our home, arguing in the kitchen when they thought no one was listening. In the video, they discussed their plan in detail, including the life insurance policy and how they would split the money after my accident. I knew something was wrong, Lily explained, her young face too serious for her years. They thought we didn't know they were different people, but we always knew, Mom. We were just scared to tell you. I turned the tablet over to Detective Rivera, who immediately recognized its value as evidence. This recording will ensure they both face justice, she assured me. In the days that followed, I moved the children to my sister's house while I sorted through the wreckage of my life. Both twins were denied bail, considered flight risks due to their history of identity manipulation. As the police investigation deepened, more disturbing facts emerged. Jack and Daniel Harrison had indeed inherited millions from their parents' death, which had been ruled accidental despite suspicions. The family trust from their grandfather contained an additional $20 million, contingent on one of them establishing a stable family for 5 years. a requirement that would have been fulfilled in just 3 more months. The most shocking discovery came when fingerprint analysis finally confirmed which twin was which. The man who had originally claimed to be Daniel, the one with the fake scar who had shown up at my door that first night, was actually Jack, my husband. The man who had returned from Tokyo claiming to be Jack was Daniel, who had been impersonating Jack during his business trips for years. Both had been living as Jack Wilson at different times, trading places throughout our marriage. According to their journal entries, sometimes the switch would last months, other times just days. They had been meticulous in their coordination, sharing notes about conversations and events to maintain the deception. 6 months later, I sat across from Dr. Matthews, watching through the one-way mirror as Lily and Noah engaged in play therapy. Their progress had been remarkable. From confused, traumatized children to ones slowly regaining their sense of security. They're building separate structures now, Dr. Matthews noted. Not twins of everything like before. That's significant progress in establishing healthy boundaries. I nodded, throat tight with emotion. Will they ever fully recover from this? Children are resilient, she assured me. With consistent support and honesty, they'll process this experience and move forward. They already understand it wasn't their fault. The twins had both pleaded guilty to reduce charges to avoid a trial that would have forced the children to testify. They would serve a minimum of 15 years each, at separate facilities. I'd started a support group for victims of identity fraud and psychological abuse, finding purpose in helping others rebuild their lives after betrayal. Slowly, painfully, we were creating a new normal, one based on truth. As I cleaned out the last of our belongings from a storage unit Jack had rented, I discovered an old photo album I'd never seen before. Flipping through its pages, my blood ran cold at what I found. Pictures of 3 identical boys, not 2. Triplets. In the very back of the album was a recent photo that appeared to have been taken with a long-range lens, showing me and the children at the park just last week. On it, a handwritten note. They failed. I won't. See you soon, Emma. I immediately called Detective Rivera. The hunt for the 3rd Harrison brother had begun. Would you recognize the subtle differences if someone replaced your spouse? If they wore the same face but carried a different soul? Like for more chilling tales of deception, subscribe for weekly stories that make you question who's really sleeping beside you tonight.